Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Landy Lodge. This is our second time streaming this episode because within the first few minutes of the first episode, we got booted offline. So we're rebooting the stream now. Gonna try and make it work. If we can't get it to work online, I'll pre-record it and upload it. But if you're seeing this intro, that means we made it, fam. Anyway, let's give a quick shout out and a lot of love to the Sages of the Lodge, the YouTube channel members, longtime Twitch subscribers, or if they donate directly to links in the description. Thank you, Sages. You're the ones who make this possible. However, as I always say, guys, all I ask is that you come to hang out. Everything else is a bonus. We've got a great guest today in KeyCast. We're debating Kingdom Hearts 1 versus Kingdom Hearts 2. Really looking forward to having this discussion with him. And also, later tonight, we will be streaming the finale of FF7 Rebirth. I'm looking forward to that. But again, without further ado, allow me to introduce today's guest for a second time, none other than the great KeyCast. KeyCast, are you experiencing the same deja vu that I am as we are back for the second time here today for this debate?
Yes, someone must have used the power of waking to give us a whole time loop.
Something happened, man, but we went back, we changed fate. We're here now. We're going to give it a second try. I think Lingering Will give us the support we need. But we're back. Thankfully, we didn't get booted offline an hour in. Thankfully, it was only the first few minutes. So if you would be so kind in today's debate of KH1 versus KH2, I know you're standing in for KH1. I'm standing in for KH2. If you would just be so kind as to go over your opening statement one more time and why you believe KH1 was better at achieving what it aimed to achieve.
Okay, so I feel like KH1 achieved the whole making it feel like you are experiencing different worlds and every world felt unique gameplay wise. For example, when you go to like Tarzan, you can swing from vines. When you go to Wonderland, you can throw potions at the flowers, which can interact the environment. Hollow Bastion, when certain treasure chests are only accessible through certain magic like gravity. Like that kind of feeling and interaction with the worlds themselves is what I feel like Kingdom Hearts as a whole has always been trying to like bring to us fans and make it feel like every world is different and unique. And that's also throughout the story in general because Sora is going to worlds that are different from his own. So bringing different interactions, unique ways of traversing these worlds is what Kingdom Hearts always is, in my opinion. And I think Kingdom Hearts succeeded in that.
And I asked you this the first time, so I'm just going to ask you it again. What would you say is Kingdom Hearts 1's greatest strength in what it was trying to achieve?
Its greatest strength would definitely 100% be all the things you can do in the different worlds. 100% the world exploration, the worlds themselves, all the little things, and this is where I say like the little things matter. The little details that are in these worlds is what's bring that charm to KH1, in my opinion.
Because, and this is where, as someone who loves KH2, I'll extend the olive branch. There is so much to what you're saying that people are still finding interactive details now. Like, I think it was KH Guides who put out that you could light the furnace in Wonderland using fire and it'll help you defeat the boss. And it's just like little quirks like that in the ways you can interact with the environment in KH1 are still being discovered today. And, I just think for full disclosure for the audience, it's worth saying that both KeyCast and I adore and love both Kingdom Hearts 1 and Kingdom Hearts 2. There are just little nuances we differ on why we prefer one title to the other. Am I correct in saying that, by the way?
Yes, 100%. I love them both just as much as the other. It's just that as time went on, and this is just me personally, as a kid, I always played Kingdom Hearts 2 on the PS2. It was my first Kingdom Hearts game that I completed. I owned KH1, but I never got past because I didn't know what to do when I first played. I was too young. But Kingdom Hearts 2, I always played it from start to finish over and over. But as I got older, I find myself for some reason always going back to Kingdom Hearts 1. Like I've replayed Kingdom Hearts 1 so many more times than any other title that I can think of.
You see, this is why I think we're going to have a good discussion today, because I actually feel that way about Kingdom Hearts 2. There's probably no game I've played on repeat more than Kingdom Hearts 2. If you tally up the amount of times I've played a game to completion in my life, Kingdom Hearts 2, I'd be confident is at the top of the list. Maybe Ocarina of Time a notch below it. That said, I'm glad we're discussing what both games were going for. Because I guess what I would say as someone who prefers Kingdom Hearts 2 to Kingdom Hearts 1 is I think Kingdom Hearts 2 is a masterclass of knowing what your strength is and doubling down on it. In a lot of ways, some of Kingdom Hearts 1's strengths had to be sacrificed at the altar of, say, Kingdom Hearts 2's combat. But, it really depends on what somebody is looking for. So I'm somebody who, I love a narrative in games. And I think if there's any topic that Kingdom Hearts 1 and Kingdom Hearts 2 are close on, I think narrative is probably where the gap is the smallest, in my opinion. Which the narratives are also very different. Like you're mentioning Kingdom Hearts 1, it is very straightforward, simple and clean, you might say. Whereas Kingdom Hearts 2 just has a tidal wave of, for lack of a better term, wackiness and lore. And I say wackiness endearingly, by the way. I don't say it like it's a bad thing. But it's funny because Chain of Memories alone changed so much of what was going on in Kingdom Hearts that Kingdom Hearts 2 has like this whole other layer to it narratively. Now, for some people, they feel like that could be a detriment. For some people, they feel like that could be a bonus. I personally fall into the latter. But to me, the reason why I prefer Kingdom Hearts 2 is, while yes, I do think the Kingdom Hearts 1 sort of exploration is important to Kingdom Hearts, and I'm happy to see Kingdom Hearts 3 starting to integrate that, reintegrate it, I suppose, and didn't do it as well or as much as Kingdom Hearts 1, but it definitely made more of an effort to do that than 2. However, I think one reason why I prefer 2 so much is because I don't really enjoy the platforming in 1. Not that I don't enjoy my platforming in Kingdom Hearts games. I'm excited to see that the little bit we saw of 4 plans to really elevate the platforming in Kingdom Hearts. But maybe it's time that's done this to me. But I have found that the platforming in Kingdom Hearts 1 to me just isn't very enjoyable. So Kingdom Hearts 2 just being this hallway of combat to me is actually very engaging because story and combat are the reason I come to Kingdom Hearts above all else. For some people, there's, soundtrack is higher on their list. For some people, world exploration is higher on that list. And for them, perhaps the Pirates of the Caribbean world in Kingdom Hearts 3 was a breath of fresh air. However, I think what I just love so much about Kingdom Hearts 2 is that it took, in my opinion, what its 2 biggest strengths were, its combat and its narrative, and just put as much energy into those 2 things as possible. Now, where I'm going to extend the olive branch is I actually think the Kingdom Hearts 1 model is a better vision for the future of the series. However, I think what Kingdom Hearts 2 managed to achieve during the time it was released is actually what's going to make it unique. I think what's going to make Kingdom Hearts 2 unique and a lot of people's favorites forever is that it really was this hallway of combat with a climaxing narrative. And to me, I think that Kingdom Hearts 2 is a textbook example of knowing your strengths and doubling down on them.
I agree. I agree with that. And I respect that.
So, we seem to be on the same page in a lot of this. Let's maybe start with the narrative, because I think that can... I have a feeling you and I are going to agree even when we disagree in a weird way.
Okay.
But let's start there. So, do you believe that Kingdom Hearts 1's narrative is overall stronger than Kingdom Hearts 2's?
Okay. For me personally, I feel like the narrative is stronger in KH1 because as you progress through the story of KH1, every world moves the story along further. Like there's no delay in the story. For me, what I've noticed when I replay KH2, the story moves along, but as you go to these worlds, the first visit is really this is my biggest gripe with KH2 is visiting the worlds 2 times to advance the story. The first time you go to these worlds, a lot of the story that happens in the Disney worlds are more like how do I put it? Are more to themselves, self-contained stories. But then the real overall plot of KH2 doesn't start taking off until the second half of the game when you have to explore them the second time. And I feel like that's where think KH1 does it better than KH2, because the overall conflict of KH2 is the organization, and you don't really get to the meat of that stuff until you reach the halfway point, which is after you do the whole huge Heartless battle at Radiant Garden, and then you have to go explore the worlds a second time. KH1, you know what you have to do. You know what's going on. You know the overall plot, what Sora needs to do on his journey, and every single world he goes to impacts the story further. Like the characters get more clues to what they need to do. Uh, you learn what the villains are planning. Like there's no delay. There's no like short delay in the story.
Well, that's where I'm going to extend the olive branch and say that I would agree that Kingdom Hearts 1's pacing is infinitely better than 2. Infinitely better. 2's narrative weakness, in my opinion, is the pacing for all the reasons that you're saying right now. In the sense that the second half of the game narratively has a completely different momentum than the first half of the game. I will also extend the olive branch that Kingdom Hearts 1's narrative did an infinitely better job at including the Disney worlds and making the Disney worlds relevant. And like you said, every Disney world you went to moved the plot forward. So I will say that we are in agreement there. And between you and I, this particular bullet point is one I find myself admittedly a little on the fence about, because I can see where Kingdom Hearts 1's narrative is clearly better structured than Kingdom Hearts 2's. I just felt that Kingdom Hearts 2, by virtue of being the third installment in the series, these characters were developed to a point that their moments meant more, their clash, and again, this is just my opinion, their clashes meant more, their resolves meant more. And I think it was so cleverly crafted too, in a lot of ways. It's no one would argue that Kingdom Hearts has become an easy story to tell. I don't think anybody would take that position.
No.
But I think Kingdom Hearts 2 does such a good job of taking Kingdom Hearts 1 and Chain of Memories, which are also two very fundamentally different narratives, and bringing them together, which is something a lot of, and by the way, to me, Kingdom Hearts 2, like spiritually, is actually Kingdom Hearts 3. Like I see 1, Chain of Memories, and 2 as this like very neatly cut out trilogy. So I feel like 2, if you look at it as sort of a trilogy narrative, I think does such a good job of bringing the previous 2 entries together, to a degree, resolving those conflicts while opening up new ones for the future. And additionally, I personally, and I'm someone who I think a lot of narratives rely on a good villain, and that's something Kingdom Hearts has never struggled with. But I personally am preferable to Xemnas than I am for Ansem. I don't know what side of the fence you fall on for that. I just feel like with Xemnas, I in a sense felt his plight. Whereas with Ansem, I didn't feel his plight. I understood him. I knew what he was after. I understood what his end game was. But for Xemnas, it was like, again, I felt like he was just easier to connect with in a way. But that's just my piece. I'll toss the baton over to you now.
Okay, when it comes to the villain, like how you said Ansem and Xemnas, I like Ansem more because I feel like, again, it was kind of weird how they kind of threw him at like the very end of the game. You don't really see him until like the beginning of Destiny Islands, and then at the very end he like finally appears.
Mm-hmm.
But what I love about KH1 is when they is the reports. You get that sense of like mystery when you read the Ansem reports. So like you're reading through all these reports as you're progressing through the story, learning about this character that we never met, we don't know much of, and you start to learn his like, I don't know, his like ideals, his beliefs, what his goals are. And then when you finally get introduced to him at the final act, you're like, okay, this is the guy. This is the guy who started everything. This is the reason why the worlds are the way they are, while the Heartless are running around. And like that's like one of the biggest impacts I think H1 does really well with villain wise, because you're building up to this villain. You're like giving me slight teases of who he is by reading the reports. I'm not seeing him do all this, but by reading these like really dark reports on the experiments he did, on all those crazy things he's done to other worlds, and you're like, wow, this guy sounds crazy. And and when you go to Travis Town, you heard he was a nice man who was starting the Heartless, and then all of a sudden he just went crazy
Yeah.
one day. And then you finally get to meet him, and then you're like, wow, this guy's really, really evil. And I think that's why I like Ansem more out of all the other Xehanorts. Xemnas, very iconic boss fight in Cage 2. I love every minute of it. Great villain. I just lean more towards Ansem, just the way they introduced him.
So I will say again, I think I'm going to say this a lot in today's episode. I agree with everything you said, and I think some of the points that you laid out is just textbook why Kingdom Hearts is so good at building its villains. Like, I don't think we've ever had a weak villain in Kingdom Hearts. And Ansem is an example of from the get go, they knew how to build a guy up. Like you said. And again, when you learn later that, the Ansem you learned that was a nice guy and King of Radiant Garden wasn't this Ansem. This was someone who stole his name, which makes Ansem even cooler, actually. Which is something I like about Kingdom Hearts 2
Yeah.
as well, is that it builds on Ansem. And now you can go back to Kingdom Hearts 1 and Ansem is even cooler. And like oh, he stole Ansem the Wise's identity. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself here. I guess I just want to take the baton back and say, to parallel with that, what I found most compelling about Xemnas was that, for example, Ansem is a heartless, right? And I think this comes down to difference in tastes. And like you said,
Okay.
what they did great with Ansem was differentiating the difference between a heartless and someone who still has their heart. Like that standoff between Sora and Ansem. You're talking about the biggest heart on that side of the universe versus a heartless. It was like good, evil. Like it did such a good job of drawing the line in the sand. What I like about Kingdom Hearts 2 is that, and again, this comes down to preferences, I suppose, is that when it comes to nobodies, that line is blurry because you start the game as a nobody, Roxas, and then you end the game fighting a nobody. So it becomes this thing where like nobodies are not by virtue good or bad, right? It comes down to that personal nobody, which is not something, not a luxury the Heartless had. So I felt that was, to me, what makes me prefer Xemnas as sort of a villain in the narrative is that it blurs that line, which is something that Kingdom Hearts 2 is all about, right? Like blurring the line where you get to the end and they're like, we know that light and dark are a balance. It's not as simple as good and evil. So again, that conceptual blurring of the lines between light and darkness, it propagated into the story of the villain and the protagonist, where you blur the lines of nobodies themselves, not just light and dark, but nothingness, nobodies. So again, I think it's a matter of preference, but I think it's a good example of how 1 and 2 really are sort of like this apple and orange of the Kingdom Hearts series, where not just in their presentation and what they rely on in terms of their gameplay, but even their narratives take things very differently. Is there anything else narratively with Kingdom Hearts 1, a strength or a weakness in Kingdom Hearts 2 narrative that you want to discuss?
Trying to think. Narratively, I think we really hit all the tough points. Like my biggest gripe with the narrative with Cage 2 and Cage 1 is really more so, this is just my personal opinion, it's just the pacing. It really is the pacing
And
that
I would
really
agree.
does it for me in
And I would
Cage
agree.
2. That's the only thing that really sticks out when I compare both narratives is the pacing.
And here's where I'll extend the olive branch in this debate. Kingdom Hearts 1 most definitely has a better structured narrative. I just found Kingdom Hearts 2's narrative to be more impactful. I think that's the best way I can sum up my position. Is I can 100% agree with you that one's narrative is better structured. And the pacing is such a huge part of that. But I found 2 more impactful, and I think a lot of that may be personal reasons and personal preferences.
No, I agree. Definitely agree that Cage 2's more impactful with its memorable moments. But in that case, I see it as more so, like you said before, it's because it's building off of Cage 1 story and Chain of Memories to like kind of conclude what we've been learning as we progress through the games. Which doesn't make it a bad thing, which I think makes it great because it definitely executed what it wanted to do perfectly. It's just I felt like they could have done more again with the pacing, like with the worlds, make the worlds somewhat impact the overall arching story.
Correct. And I think Kingdom Hearts 2 is actually, admittedly, I'm supposed to be defending Kingdom Hearts 2, but admittedly, I think Kingdom Hearts 2 is almost responsible for giving some people the impression that Disney worlds don't matter. Because I don't know how you can
Uh,
play either 1 or 3 and come away with that opinion. But in 2, I see how people can conclude that.
I agree. Yeah, I could definitely see maybe 2 is the reason for that whole argument.
Well,
I was gonna use an example actually. I was gonna use a really good example of like how, because like you know how I said in Cage 1 every world impacts the story and progresses it.
correct.
I was gonna use Olympus in Cage 1 as an example. Um, Olympus is one of those worlds obviously because you go there the first time, but it didn't impact the story further until after you defeat the Hercules Cup, in my opinion, because after you beat the Hercules Cup, that's when Sora comes to the conclusion that his friends are his power. And funny enough, he brings that up when he goes to Hollow Bastion, and the Hercules Cup doesn't become accessible to you until like you unlock Hollow Bastion. So you're supposed to go to Hercules Cup, get that very emotional cutscene where Sora finally realizes the strength of heart comes from your friends. So then when you go to Hollow Bastion, that whole scene plays out very more impactful. And I feel like a lot of people don't really pay attention to that.
That and the fact that, one thing I will always remember with Kingdom Hearts 1, and this is something the narratives in future games still haven't achieved, storming the castle with Beast. Like, you want to talk about like a union between the main narrative and Disney characters and all that, like storming the castle with Beast at Hollow Bastion, stuff like that. Kingdom Hearts 1 did a good job of getting the Disney worlds involved with the original characters and their narrative. And I think that's Kingdom Hearts at their best, where they can do that. I will say, Kingdom Hearts 2, I feel like, did that with their Final Fantasy characters. I feel like Kingdom Hearts 2 incorporated the Final Fantasy characters and wove them into the plot so well, but almost at a cost of the Disney characters. Now, look, my opinion, I like Final Fantasy characters more than Disney characters. However, in Kingdom Hearts, in a lot of ways, I like it when you can bring those two worlds together. And I understand we're at a time now where like there's so many original characters, something's got to give.
Of course.
Exactly. But with Kingdom Hearts 2, and again, I think it's a game that really doubled down on their strengths, but to the point it highlighted weaknesses. So I think they realized that by Kingdom Hearts 2, it was the original plot and the original characters that people cared about the most, right? And I don't think anybody would argue that more people come to
No.
Kingdom Hearts for Sora than they do Mickey Mouse. I think that's a very fair statement to make. But where Kingdom Hearts 2 just said, hey, we are going to make the Disney worlds a little more rudimentary so that we can put more of the budget, more of the cutscenes, more of the voice lines, more of that into the original characters and original plot. That, to me, I do prefer that. Now, I would prefer the ideal world where it's more well-balanced, but if I had to pick for them to double down on something, the way they doubled down in Kingdom Hearts 2 would be my opinion of what to do. But I think just as far as narrative goes, Adonai in the chat talks about, I think Cage 2 worlds retroactively fit the current themes and ideas we have today. And I think that keyword there, themes, was something I was maybe trying to get at when I talked about blurring of the lines. I guess that would be something I'd notch in Kingdom Hearts 2's belt, is that I think it did, what would you call? I think it did handle its thematics better. But I almost now want to retroactively take something back I said earlier. Kingdom Hearts 1 also did a fantastic job of woven the Final Fantasy characters into the plot. I did kind of make it sound like that was a Kingdom Hearts 2 thing. Whereas Kingdom Hearts 1, I actually, looking back, did equally as good a job at doing that. So I just wanted to retroactively punch that in.
No, yeah. They both equally definitely did a good job at keeping them both included into the overall plot.
So would you agree, going off something Lance just threw in the chat, that KH1 handled the Disney worlds and the pacing of all that better, but the KH2's original worlds were better than KH1's? And the only thing that I would fight on that, God, I'm like interrupting myself here. KH1 did a better job of making those worlds interactive, right? But
Yes.
there was something about particularly KH2's original worlds that I think were so spectacular. I just feel like KH2 really, I think the Disney worlds were sacrificed at the altar of the original worlds, because like Radiant Garden, Hollow Bastion, that whole subplot is like amazing. It's something we haven't gotten since that I wish we got more of. So where would you maybe stand on that? Is that a statement you'd agree with, or would you argue that?
I would say definitely the original worlds in KH2 are definitely better than KH1 on how they were handled. I will say though that still the original worlds in KH1 are just as good, but definitely KH2 made it more memorable and more iconic.
And I, for the most part, I would agree with that statement. Um, so, we could always come back to it. We'll get to the chat after the hour point, see what they have to say. But I think maybe right now we can depart narrative, maybe move on to another bullet point if you want.
I was gonna say, how about replayability?
I think that's great. Okay, replayability. Would you like to go first or?
Okay,
Okay.
I'll go first. I think this is one of Kingdom Hearts 1's strongest things is replayability, because there are so many different ways you can replay KH1 in my opinion compared to KH2. And I'm not talking about like, different runs where you don't, use a specific Keyblade or you nerf yourself. This is where I feel like KH1 also was really carefully like taken care of when being made. At the very start of KH1, and I don't think a lot of people really pay attention to this, when you make those choices with Tidus, Selphie, and Waka, that determines how you will level up in the game. Like you can level up slow at the beginning of the game and level up fast when you reach towards the end. You could level up quick at the beginning and slow towards the end, or you can equally, in a nice steady pace, level up as the game progresses as a whole. On top of that, when you get to the Dream Sword, the Dream Shield, and the Dream Staff, depending on what you pick, not only determines what abilities you'll get as you level up throughout the game, it also changes your overall stats. So you could have like weaker defense, stronger attack, weak defense, very small accessory slots. With KH2 now, all they really gave you was the Dream Sword, the Dream Shield, and the Dream Staff. And depending on what you choose, all it does is determine what type of abilities you'll get early and what type of abilities you'll get later. And I feel like that's where you can replay Kingdom Hearts 1 in so many different ways compared to KH2.
So I'm gonna I'm going to actually concede this point. I think you're right.
Okay.
I think that Kingdom Hearts 1, when it comes to replayability through and through, there's just, like you said, more variability in terms of gameplay and sort of the game structure. Now, at the end of the day, we are judging video games here, not a story. Stories are part of video games, but at the end of the day, these are games. And I'm going to extend the olive branch that when it comes to playing the game itself, Kingdom Hearts 1 is a more rewarding replay than 2. That said, even though I'm conceding this point, what I would say is that Kingdom Hearts 2, when it comes to narrative, is much more worth replaying, because there's so much you'll miss the first time, just because it's the convergence of so much that happened in the first two games. So I felt like at least the first maybe 7 times I played it, I always got something new narratively from Kingdom Hearts 2, something I missed, something I didn't understand the first or second time. So when it came to narrative and story, I felt like 2 was a better replay. But as a whole, as a game, I 100% agree with you that Kingdom Hearts 1 has more of a replayability to it.
I will also want to add more to the replayability. This also goes back to story wise.
Mm-hmm.
Kingdom Hearts 1 had a ton of different alternate cutscenes. Now, when you think of alternate
That's fair.
cutscenes in a video game, you think of them as what ifs. And usually when you play a game and there's an alternate cutscene, they're not considered canon to the story. Kingdom Hearts 1 succeeded in making sure every alternate cutscene that you get in this game somehow fits canonically to the story. And I'll use an example. I'll go back to Olympus. It's funny, I keep going back to Olympus. If you finish Olympus the first time, you get a cutscene of Hades talking about how much he hates Hercules and how he plans to destroy Hercules, and then Maleficent shows up. And he tells her, "Listen, get lost. This is my show. I got it from here. I don't need your help." Now, if you choose not to finish Olympus Coliseum's first visit and do all the other worlds, and let's say you kill Maleficent at Hollow Bastion, if you go back after doing that and go finish Hercules' first visit and kill Cerberus, Maleficent doesn't show up in that cutscene when Hades is monologuing to himself. And it's those little details
I never
which
knew that.
I also think brings it. Yes, it's those little details that bring a charm to KH1. And there's a couple of others too. Like when you go to Monstro the first time, you remember how Riku's teasing Sora, and they have that whole thing where Riku's trying to get Sora to come save Kairi, and Sora's like, Riku, you're acting different. If you choose not to finish Monstro the first time and you go to Neverland, and then, or say you go to Riku when he's like completely on the side of Maleficent in darkness, and you go back to Monstro and you meet Riku there, narratively, Sora looks at Riku 100% differently. He's like, "You're not the Riku I know. The Riku I know would never do something like this." And Square just found the way to make all these alternate cutscenes work. So not only you don't have to play these worlds, that means you could play these worlds in any order you want, and the story will still fit perfectly of what it's trying to tell you.
Can I interrupt you real quick?
Yeah, go
Every
ahead.
open world game needs to learn from that, actually. Because that
I
almost
agree.
gives it sort of that. Obviously, Kingdom Hearts 1 is not an open world game, but it almost gives you that sort of open world freedom of you can do these things in the order you please, and the order you please will affect what you see narratively in the cutscenes. I think, I knew about the Monstro one, but knowing you putting that in perspective really shows me how special an achievement that was by the team.
Honestly, I can't think of another game that's done something like that. Like, I've seen games do alternate cutscenes before, but in such a way where no matter how you take it, like, it's still considered part of the actual main storyline.
Yep.
It doesn't like affect it in a way where you're like, "Oh, okay, this is a cool thing if it was to happen." No, this could actually happen.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you said, it's you can't understate how difficult it must have been to woven all those in without affecting the final products, without affecting the climax and all of that, right? Because like you said, there are plenty of
Exactly.
games that have alternate endings, alternate paths, but what about a game that has alternate paths that all lead to the same end road? Like that is something special. So again, I've always I from the top I conceded this point into Kingdom Hearts 1. I'm gonna see if maybe I can do actually before I jump us to another point. Was there anything else you wanted to bring up for replayability?
No, I was actually wanting to hear your side to that, the replayability now
I mean,
on
I'm
KH2. Do you
like I
feel
said,
like
I'm conceding this point. I think Kingdom Hearts 2. I still believe that when it comes to
okay, so you think
narrative,
okay.
yeah, I still believe when it comes to narrative, Kingdom Hearts 2 is a more rewarding replay. But as a video game as a whole, I believe Kingdom Hearts 1 does have better replayability. So I'm going to concede that point.
All right. No
I
problem.
could argue for the sake of arguing, but it would be disingenuous on my part. So I want to move us into what I believe is Kingdom Hearts 2's biggest strength, and that's the combat. The combat of Kingdom Hearts 2 to me is just people still to this day will tell you this is the best action combat Square's ever put out. And you know what? I don't agree with that, but I definitely understand that point. To me, Kingdom Hearts 2's combat, maybe this is hyperbolic. Live chat can berate me. My comment section can berate me. I think Kingdom Hearts 2's combat changed gaming. I really believe that. It for sure changed Square Enix forever. There's a Kingdom Hearts 2 is like, as Hojo might say, the watershed moment for Square Enix. But I think Kingdom Hearts 2, that combat was so good. and I'm even talking base Kingdom Hearts 2. We all know how brilliant Final Mix 2 is with its combat. But even base Kingdom Hearts 2, in the year it came out, 2004, I believe, off the top of my head, we had seldom seen an action game that good, that fluent. Like, to me, Kingdom Hearts 2's combat is what it will always be remembered for. As someone who will sing the narrative's praises to the end of time, the combat of Kingdom Hearts 2, I really believe, not only changed Square Enix forever, I believe it changed gaming forever. I think the renaissance of action RPGs we're seeing right now, the launching point of that, I believe, was right here in Kingdom Hearts 2. So I think this is the strength of KH2. I think it's what it will and should be remembered for. And that's Kingdom Hearts 1, make no mistake, paved the way and has a better magic system. I'll concede that. Kingdom Hearts 1 has a better magic system. But overall, the combat of Kingdom Hearts 2, it paved the way for the Nier series. It paved the way for the FF7 trilogy we're playing now. It paved the way for Lightning Returns, which is also a very impactful game in Square's history. So that's just my stance on Kingdom Hearts 2's combat. It, to this day, is still so much fun to play, has aged tremendously well, and I just think the devs should be very proud of themselves. And I'll end my rant there.
I 100% agree with you, and I'll agree with every single KH fan who always says KH2 has fantastic combat. And like you said, I believe KH2's combat was the blueprint for every other future game that came out that tried to like imitate or go close to what that combat was.
Yep.
I will never say KH2's combat's bad. I will never say KH1's combat is better than KH2. I will not say KH1's combat is horrible. It's good.
It's definitely
it's
not.
definitely not on par. It's definitely not horrible as most people make it out to be. But I will always say KH2's combat is really, really good.
And I think go ahead.
I was gonna say, but that's where I feel like when we always, as fans in the community, whenever we debate KH1 versus KH2, that's the only thing I see people really argue is gameplay. Once they say gameplay, that's it. I never see people like delve into like the overall of what these games are delivering, and that's why I really enjoy that we're doing this kind of debate on tackling every other topic besides just strictly gameplay.
Absolutely. And, when it comes to gameplay, too, there are things that Kingdom Hearts' 1's gameplay did better than 2. But for some reason, combat seems to be the only gameplay people focus on. And you know what? Lots of people would concede that 2 has the better combat, but at the end of the day, 1 walked so 2 could run. People can say how dated 1's combat feels, and I don't necessarily disagree with that point, but you got to understand that when Kingdom Hearts 1 came out, that combat was cutting edge. And now we all recognize what a leap 2's combat is from 1, and they made that leap in 2 years, which to me is just
That's true. Yeah.
Tremendous. But you can't understate also that I thought Kingdom Hearts 1's magic system was better. So even though I think 2's combat overall is better, 1's magic system, I wish more of it was like prevalent in 2, right? Especially some of those more. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, when I look at KH1 now, when people play it, when you see the crazy combos people can accomplish with the magic system in KH1 and just the abilities overall,
yes,
I think it's like insane, because I'm looking back, I'm like, what was I doing wrong when I was playing the game? Like I'm seeing people like one turn Maleficent Dragon phase with stop and like all other magic using genie summons. I'm like, where was this when I was playing? And KH2, you see some of that too when people use like the drive forms when they're doing their combat. Like the crazy combos are insane.
I will say, one of the most underrated discussions in the whole gaming sphere is Kingdom Hearts combat in general. At least the main titles, right? Because the subtitles, like your Chain of Memories and your Days, they always try to be experimental, a little more simple.
Yes.
So, but if there's anything Kingdom Hearts should be proud of as a series, it's the combat that it's achieved. Was there anything else with combat you wanted to bring up?
Honestly, no. I think we hit all the major points when it came to combat.
Okay. Do you want to? Okay, so look, we've talked combat, we've talked replayability, and before that, I believe we were just kind of talking about kind of our broad statements, broad ideas. Do
I was
you
gonna I
go?
was gonna bring up maybe the worlds.
Yeah, let's talk about the worlds. I will say that.
Um, how, how, how do you feel about this? Is where I also like KH1 a little bit more. KH1's worlds, also story wise, were more um custom made. They weren't like this is maybe a little thing I also didn't like about KH2. You didn't feel like you were reenacting the entire movie just with Sora, Donald, Goofy included. Like you got a sense of like this is like an original story with these Disney worlds in KH1. Minor, they did have some elements from their movies, but it still felt like an original story. Whereas KH2, you kind of didn't have that a lot in some of the worlds. Like I'll use Mulan as an example. You're basically just going through the entire movie with Sora and Donald and Goofy included. So what's your take on that? Do you like original story worlds, or do you like when they replay the entire movie's plot line?
I 100% about original stories inside of Disney World. This is probably another
Okay.
point I'm going to concede to you, by the way, that one's Disney Worlds are better. Um, I like the properties in Kingdom Hearts 2 more, but the Kingdom Hearts 1 worlds are superior. And this is another point I'm going to concede to Kingdom Hearts 1. And I actually will say, and I think anyone would be crazy to argue Kingdom Hearts 2's worlds are better. Again, you can like those properties more. You can prefer hallway combat more. In some ways, I do. It's why I prefer to. But much more love and care went into the Disney worlds of Kingdom Hearts 1. And I think anyone would be foolish to argue that.
I agree. Yeah, I agree that KH1 definitely took the cake when it came to doing their worlds, especially with the elements involved and what you can do in those worlds. And it just fits so well. Like again, you're playing as Sora who wants to explore new worlds that are completely different from his own.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to just this is going back to the interactive environments, just the way you can interact in all these worlds made them feel fresh and different. Like um, Hollow Bastion, again, remember those bubbles that teleport you to different locations when you jump into them? Like
Yep.
that's unique, but then you could also freeze them to make platforms. Like it's those little things that like no we still are discovering to this day that are just makes Cage 1 so charming. I can't think of a moment in Cage 2 where we've actually done something like interacted with the world itself in like, to change the environment or just something like a little detail. It was like you said, more so just walking from one location to another, fighting hordes of enemies, and
It's
just
a
advancing
combat
through the
hallway.
story.
It's a combat hallway.
Exactly.
And again, to me, I I overall prefer the Kingdom Hearts 1 model, but I think I overall prefer the Kingdom Hearts 1 model and think that's a better vision for the future of Kingdom Hearts. But I think where the tech was back then, this is why Kingdom Hearts 2 has just aged better, in my opinion. Because I think I can agree that 1, in my opinion, is the better approach. But I think 2 just really knew what it was. And that's why it did what it did with the Disney worlds. It was like, hey, the combat is really our strength here. I really think they just fell in love with the combat. But that's bringing us back to the combat. Reining myself in and bringing us back to the Disney worlds here. I'll repeat myself what I said before. I think the Disney worlds were sacrificed at the altar of combat and original worlds in Kingdom Hearts 2. And for some people, that's why it's their favorite in the series. And for me, it's why I may prefer 2 to 1, but I do prefer 3 to 2. Because 3, in my opinion, wanted to bring some of that back from 1. And like you were saying, the ability to like turn the bubbles into platforms and interact with the worlds using the magic of the Keyblade. This is something I so desperately want to come back to Kingdom Hearts. Like, I want that in Kingdom Hearts 4 more than anything. You give me a list of what I want in Kingdom Hearts 4, it's achieve what you were going for in Kingdom Hearts 1, now that it's 20 some odd years later. If they did that approach again, imagine what they could do now.
I agree. I would love to see a lot of things that Kingdom Hearts 1 had like brought into Cage 4. and onward. I want to see more interactions in the worlds because I just haven't. I feel like I haven't gotten that in so long. And like you said, Cage 3 teased some of that again.
Hmm.
Like, I'll give a quick example of Cage 3. Like when you go to Olympus, you remember the Achilles statue? When you break the heel,
Hmm.
the whole statue comes over.
Yep.
Like that's good. Keep
Yes.
going with that. Like those little things may not seem like a big deal, but they actually are.
They are most certainly. And that I want more of it because it gives the Keyblade right now. The Keyblade isn't just a thing you whack anime characters with. Now the Keyblade is something that helps you navigate the world, you know. And I think that's something. I think that builds into the lore of the Keyblade. So check it. We've got a $10 super chat from Josh Z. You're gonna like this one, Keycast. Comes in, chiming in, says the MP system and risk reward of boss fights is infinitely better in Kingdom Hearts 1. And growth abilities was stupid because it forced every world to be, and they bury how to level them up in the stats screen. So essentially that the MP system, he's believing the MP system was stronger and that overall the RPG stuff was a little bit more transparent, which I, for the most part, agree with that statement. But Josh, thank you for that $10 super chat.
Yes,
What do you
I'll
think
agree.
about that?
I'll agree with that. I definitely I like the MP system a lot more in Cage 1 compared to Cage 2. It's just something the way how they handled it, like what depending on how much like what magic you use, how many bars disappear instead of like you losing the entire bar, like if you use Cure
Mm-hmm.
and you have to wait a certain time for it to recharge. I honestly wasn't a fan of that. And I know it's a continuous thing in all the Cage games, but what else? When it comes to the magic system, I'm trying to think. And then he said about what did he say about the level them up in the stat screen?
That they bury
I
how you
agree too.
level it up in the stat screen. Like they don't, whereas one was a little more transparent with that.
Yes, I agree with that too.
Yeah. Thank you again, Josh Z. Somebody's asking if music is a category in this debate. I think we could touch on soundtrack,
Yeah, we could touch on the music.
which, all right. I'm going to go first. I think 2 has the better
Yeah.
soundtrack. I think that, I think a lot of that is just due to the fact that it has a lot of what Kingdom Hearts 1 soundtrack has, right? Like Traverse Town and things like that. But it was so much of the new, like The Other Promise. I can't tell you, like Roxas's theme, like I cannot tell you how many times I listened to that. But
Oh my god.
it's weird. It's I'm not, soundtrack is not a hill I'll die on. I just prefer 2s. I just think 2, a lot of the newer tracks to me in 2, I felt were very powerful.
I agree. 2 definitely wins in the soundtrack department. When it comes to Cage 1's music, it's great, but now going back to it when we have all these new soundtracks, it's more for nostalgia purposes, in my opinion, Cage 1 soundtrack.
So, but where do you stand on Simple and Clean versus Sanctuary?
Simple and Clean. Sanctuary is a winner for me. Sanctuary, I think, is way better than Simple and Clean. I like Simple and Clean, but Sanctuary still takes the cake.
I love both, but Sanctuary wins me over on that very simple little guitar riff.
Yeah,
That it
it's
drops
instant.
like, oh god. Okay, I'm gonna get a copyright strike if I keep that up. Anyway, so
Wait, actually, which one was used more? Was Simple and Clean used more in Kingdom Hearts than Sanctuary? I can't remember. I'm trying to think. I know some games use the same intro song. I'm trying to remember which ones had Simple and Clean and which ones used Sanctuary. I'm pretty sure Simple and Clean was used more, right?
yeah, Simple and Clean overall has been used more.
Okay.
But man, I don't know. That's that. It's so funny. We're both on the same page with 2 soundtrack being a little better than 1's, just with a lot of the new tracks. But it's like for Kingdom Hearts soundtracks, like no matter what Kingdom Hearts game you're playing, the soundtrack's a 10 out of 10. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, perfect. 10 out of 10. All of them are always 10
And I
out
think
of
that
10.
applies to like Square Enix across the board. Like any Square Enix game, your soundtrack is going to be a 10 out of 10. All right. So let's think. What else? We've gotten the replayability, the combat, the worlds, the music.
How about bosses?
I was about to say boss battles. Now, this is what, it's so funny. I thought about this one. This was one I'm admittedly conflicted about. I want you to go first because maybe you can get me to concede, but I'm a little conflicted on
Oh,
one and two's bosses.
I'm I'm gonna be honest. I feel like I was gonna concede for this one because I
Okay.
will say Cage Two's bosses are way more crazier than Cage One. Like I'm thinking already off the top of my head, like what bosses in Cage One are like good, but off the top of my head, I'm thinking of all the bad ones, like Jafar's first phase, where you're chasing him across the whole area, which I didn't like at all. Oh god, there's so many bosses. Like the Parasite Cage. I mean, that one was okay, but it still didn't feel like, you know what it is? Cage 2 just has those flashy boss fights. They're just so
Yeah, it's the reaction commands.
flashy,
It's the
and
reaction commands.
it probably, I would say, yeah, you're probably right. It's the reaction commands that do it. It's just I can't think of like a really good boss fight in Cage 1. Like I love the Riku Ansem fight. I love the Riku boss fight. I love the
I lo-
Ansem final
and the
stage
Maleficent
boss
fight.
fight.
I do really enjoy the
The
Maleficent
Maleficent
fight
fight's
too.
good. I like her first phase and second phase. I feel like what I like about her first phase more is the way like how you can use gravity magic to lower her pedestal that she's on. Again, little things that matter, like those little details. Um but yeah, Cage 2 definitely succeeds when it comes to boss fight in my opinion because of just how flashy and how many cool things you can do.
Yeah, what conflicted me on two is I feel like it has the higher highs but the lower lows, which is what had me conflicted. What I focused on a lot was the final boss because I think Zemnis, that final boss fight, especially like the ending sequence, is just so out of control. Not that the Ansem fight isn't good, and I love the meme that everybody had to watch that cutscene a million times, but
Oh yes.
the Zemnis fight alone to me was just completely out of this world, especially at that time. Like geez, spamming like X and triangle as Sora and Riku to finish the fight. You're controlling two characters at once. Zemnis is doing his DM. Like it, I don't know. It's like you're saying the flashiness of two's boss battles are just so rewarding, and just it makes
It
you.
is.
Yeah, it really immerses you. That's the word I'm looking for. It immerses you. And the reaction commands are a big part of that too, because the reaction commands allowed a lot of that flashiness to thrive, you know? Because you were, in a sense, just pressing
What
a
are your
button and unlocking a combat cutscene. That's really what a reaction command is.
uh,
It's a combat cutscene.
oh, it's funny that you brought that up. I was actually going to say, like, what are your takes on the reaction commands, which is a new feature added into the Kingdom Hearts series? Do you think that they were more so like, okay, you press triangle to win, almost how like people say you mash X to win? Like, what's your take on reaction commands as a whole? Because me
So,
personally, I love them. I just want them as a future. I want reaction commands to be only during like after the boss fight, in my opinion. I want them to be more like QTEs.
yep. I'm actually with you there.
Like I don't.
I agree with that. I think I prefer them as QTEs during a cutscene as opposed to igniting or initiating a combat cutscene. Because for me, like reaction commands, they appear to be back in Kingdom Hearts 4, but I don't really care about them that much. Because to me, it's like I pressed a button and a little cutscene happened. I'm much more interested in the actual combat mechanics, whether it's magic, wielding the sword itself, dodging, blocking, abilities. That to me is so much higher on my list. I like reaction commands. I'm happy they're back. What I worry about, which has never really been a problem for Kingdom Hearts, but what I never want to see is an over reliance on them. I think FF16 is a great example, by the way, of a game that used QTEs and reaction commands in and out of combat that I think had a very good balance of them. But overall, reaction commands never have been and never will be a deal breaker for me. I like them. I would just never wait in line for it.
Okay, that's fair. That's where I side with it too.
Now,
But back to bosses, yeah.
yes.
The KH1, I there are some good bosses that I really enjoy, very creative, in what they do, but there's some that are just not like on par with KH2's. especially the organization fights in Cage 2.
Yeah. I was going to say, it just has the highest highs and the lowest lows, KH2, when it comes to its bosses. Whereas 1 was clearly still figuring out what it was. You know what I mean? At least when it came to the combat bosses. I mean, we're not even going to talk about Clayton. You know? It's not talking.
Oh yeah, no,
We
let's
don't
not
talk about
Clayton.
Clayton.
We don't talk about Clayton.
We don't
We don't
talk
talk about
Clayton.
Clayton.
But yeah, I think we're in agreement on boss battles. Here's a spicy one. Which game do you think had the better ending?
Better ending. Okay, this is tough because you got to remember 2 is building off of Cage, 1's story and Chain of Memories, giving you that climax. 1 is giving you a climax, but also giving you the tease that something more is going on. I don't know.
All right, then here's a way to frame it. Did 1 do a better job of with its cliffhanger to make people want to keep playing the series, or did 2 do a better job with its resolve to make people feel like they played like a full experience? Like you kind of know what I'm getting at there? We were trying to see what it was aiming for better. Was 1 the better cliffhanger, or was 2 the better resolve? I think that's a good way to approach this.
It's so tough. 2 was definitely the best resolve. Like it gave you that sense of conclusion. Okay, we did everything. We finally made it back home. Everyone's here. We're all happy. The end. 1 gave you that bittersweet ending. You saved Kyrie. You saved the worlds. Now all that's left is to go find Riku and King Mickey and bring them home. And you're given that sense that the worlds are fine now. There's no more danger. It's just now we just go locate our friends. So I still think 2 wins in that department, though. 2 definitely wins, but 1 definitely has a great bittersweet ending.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with that take. I think 1 did a beautiful job of being a cliffhanger. I think the idea that you start the game, these 3 kids are together, they want to go on an adventure and see the world, but that went terribly, and they all got separated, and 1 fell to darkness, and 1 became unconscious, and 1 made friends with a duck and a dog. He got it the best. But you get to the end, and it's like, not only like, oh, it's so good. I really think it's so good, the Kingdom Hearts 1 ending, because it's like, it's not only these 3 characters don't get to go on the adventure together, they're more separated than they ever have been. Like, Sora and Riku are on 2 separate sides of reality. Well, at least what we perceived to be 2 separate sides of reality at the time. Wow, that's interesting how 1 and 3 kind of parallel each other like that. Anyway, getting off topic. Anyway, so 1, Sora and Riku are separated by a door between 2 realities, and Kairi went back home. But as we learned in 2, Kairi felt guilty about that. And it's just like, there was something so great about that setup that everyone kind of got what they deserved. Kairi got to go back home safely. Riku, who felt the darkness, got sent to the realm of darkness. Sora got to continue the adventure with his friends. You know, it's such a good cliffhanger. It does such a good job, and to this day, that ending still gets me. However, 2's resolve is so good, people were mad that 3 was a cliffhanger. And I say that endearingly, and I say that to 2's credit. That 2's ending is such a good resolve, symbolically, thematically, all of it does such a good job that when people played Kingdom Hearts 3, I really believe it, were hoping for a similar ending. So I think they both knocked it out of the park. I just think 2 is such a strong resolve because it's one of the few quote-unquote happy endings in Kingdom Hearts. Kingdom Hearts, more often than not, has a very bittersweet ending at best. And there is a bittersweetness to Kingdom Hearts 2's ending. You know, Naminé and Roxas, they don't get to be themselves. Master Xehanort's plan is coming to fruition as he wanted. So there is some bittersweetness there. It's not a perfectly happy ending. As we learned in Coded, Roxas was still in pain. But it really did a good job of making people feel good coming away from that game. Like, I know for myself, I always say Kingdom Hearts 2 It's not even my favorite Kingdom Hearts game, but it's the game that means the most to me. And part of it had to do with that ending. And the two separate times in my life, that ending impacted me severely in a good way. So to me, there's a little confirmation bias here. But to me, I think Kingdom Hearts 2 as a resolve is a masterclass ending. So I'm going to give it that point.
I 100% agree with you there. I have no argument or anything. That's just perfect. They did everything right when they were building off the entire story leading up to the KH2's ending. And like you said, KH1 gave us that cliffhanger, and we know as a player that there is still more left to do. KH2's ending made it feel like we're done. Like there's nothing left. Like that letter Sora got from Mickey could have just been like a caught up letter saying, how's everything doing? Just wanted to check in on you guys. We as a player don't know if it's gonna lead into something else, obviously until we see the secret ending. But it just gave us that sense of, okay, everything's done. Everyone's happy. Everyone's where they need to be.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. Because like you said, like, again, we knew Xehanort was still out there. Right? Regardless if you saw that secret ending, right? You knew that Xemnas was the nobody to Xehanort. We learned that when we went to Hollow Bastion, which became Radiant Garden. But like you said, it felt like if, for whatever reason, again, we're not saying the series could have ended at KH2. It was very clear there was more of a story to tell. But I think what you're getting at, Keycast, is that if for whatever reason, maybe the game flopped, if that had to be the end of Kingdom Hearts, they could have done it in theory. They could have.
Of
Roxas,
course. It definitely could have.
Exactly. They haven't elaborated that Roxas was hurt, right? That was Coded's job. They haven't. They brought up Master Xehanort, but we hadn't seen him yet, So, like you said, it did what it had to do. Because again, they weren't sure. They weren't sure they were even going to get a second game when they made Kingdom Hearts 1. Which makes that cliffhanger ending really ballsy, by the way.
I agree. I guess, yeah, that actually really does make it ballsy. Because it's like, how do we know if this is going to sell well enough for us to make a sequel? But I guess they felt like, we'll put that in there just in case this actually does well, and maybe we'll get a sequel.
Right. And then you have to consider Kingdom Hearts 2 didn't sell as well as 1. Chain of Memories obviously didn't sell as well as 1. There was no guarantee something after Kingdom Hearts 2 is coming. Obviously, they had plans. I think Nomura was always planning for that. But this is a business at the end of the day. And you're not guaranteed another game just because you made one. So, I'll give them points for that. All right. Let's see here. Just want to get to some super chats. We had a couple come in. Josh C says,
fine.
I don't like the boss reaction commands, but the ones for regular enemies are great. I think Kingdom Hearts 3's mob fights could have done with a couple reaction commands.
I agree.
And then we get a $10 super chat from Lands of Masters. Says 1 sets up the next game better than 2. 2 sets up the next game, but 2's resolve is the greatest ending ever. Yeah, I think that's more or less what we're getting at. Thank you for that super chat, Lands. And thank you again, Josh, for coming through. 2 Sages of the Lodge. But yeah, more or less, I think what Lands is saying there is what we were getting at. All right. We've... Go ahead.
Trying to think of another. I was going to say, you want to talk about all the extra content besides outside of the main story and combat, or what they gave us?
That would be I think that'd be a good idea. I'm happy to get into that.
All right, I'll let you go first for KH2. Like all the extra content that you can do, like after beating the game, or
here's what I have to ask: am I talking about base 2 or final mix?
It could be just final mix, since everyone.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say final mix, because that seems like the biggest thing everyone says, obviously, when you talk about KH1 versus KH2. It's the final mix version.
It has to be, because I will say, if we're talking about base KH2, I was going to concede this point from the get-go. But with final mix, for me, it's the data fights, man. Like, for me, like, that's it right there. The data fights of KH2 are so good. to the point that, like, I think the KH3 data fights are some of the best boss battle content in gaming, period. Obviously, no bias here.
Mhm.
But KH2 Final Mix, those data fights, are they technically data fights? I don't know why I'm calling them that. Anyway, I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah, they're basically data fights.
yeah, they paved the way in a lot of ways, and I think what that side content did was really highlight that the one-on-one fights is where the Kingdom Hearts combat thrives most. And I think
Okay.
it was the development of that kind of content that showed us that. As for other side content, I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I think
And when I say side content, I also mean like, mini
mini
games or
games.
like searching for the treasure chests or
Yep.
the Coliseum, stuff like that. When I say side content, I mean like all those little extra stuff you don't have to do, but you can if you want to. And is it rewarding when you do all that stuff?
I mean, I have to give it to 2, right? Because, like, the whole Hollow Bastion to Radiant Garden thing is technically side content, right? Because you can beat the
Uh,
game without turning it into Radiant Garden.
yes, you can. Yes, because that's a second visit at Tron. That's an optional, I think, world choice.
Yeah. So I just think
That's
by
that's the
nature.
same
Good.
thing. Is that the same? That's the same thing with um Pride Rock though too. That's a Disney World you don't have to complete in its entirety to advance the overall plot.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think I'm just partial because Hollow Bastion's the original world with the Final Fantasy characters. So I think I'm just partial to that, I suppose. I think overall, like, if you're going 1 versus 2, it's no question 1 is the better side content. I think because of Final Mix's addition of those fights, I would give it to 2. Because I gotta be honest, I am not a big fan of Kingdom Hearts minigames. There's seldom been a minigame that I want to come back to. So that's a Kingdom Hearts wide complaint I have. Is sometimes I think they do too many mini games. Your regular gameplay is so strong, insist upon it. So I'm gonna go with 2 just by nature of those fights that you unlock at the end.
Okay. For me, I would say 1 only because the side contents in 1 also kind of fit the narrative in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying all of them, like I'll just do one example of one side content that actually fits like the overall story of Kingdom Hearts would be the Dalmatians, hunting for the 101 Dalmatians that are missing across the worlds. Like that I always enjoy because it gives you the sense like, oh wow, just like how Sora and his friends got scattered, these poor dogs lost all their puppies during the separation of their world. So now you're going out and you're helping reunite them and you're being rewarded with certain items and abilities just for like searching them through treasure chests, which mind you, I will say treasure chests as a side content because in 1, it's a lot harder to find treasure chests compared to 2 in my opinion because they're just laying around
Mm-hmm.
hidden in certain like spaces. In KH1, you need certain magic, you need the Trinity marks, which I also really enjoy, the Trinity marks all over different across the worlds that you can get different like animations for when you do each color. Um, I love the Coliseum fights in KH1. I will say I think I like them more in KH1 than KH2's. When it comes to secret bosses, though, I will give it to KH2 when it comes to the data fights. But when it comes to like extra side content, 1 still, in my opinion, wins on what so much you have to do side content, which is enjoyable and rewarding.
And I can respect that. I can definitely. It's funny, right? Because it's like, if you break down what you and I both just said, it kind of really is, in a sense, representative of this whole debate. Basically, what came out of my mouth when you asked about side content, I went, combat. KH2 combat. Yes. KH2 combat good. Yes. Yes. And then you basically came back like KH1 worlds, exploration, involvement, like stuff like that. It's, I find that fun. I feel like that's really, if you prefer one game to the other, I think a lot of it will come down to preference. I think that's a lot of what this conversation is at least showing me, right? Because even when we agree, disagree, it seems like the same sort of preferences, for lack of a better term, are kind of coming forward.
Yes.
But yeah, no, the side content, again, yeah, I guess if you got rid of the data fights, I would have to agree with you. But I think this is also true for 3, is that I put more time into the data fights than the actual campaigns. So I'm definitely on board with that there. Let's see. Okay, anything that I wrote down topic-wise, it seems like we've covered. Are there any lingering topics? What I'm going to do, I'm going to put a poll in the YouTube and Twitch chat, seeing where the audience stands on what game achieved what it set out to do better.
Okay. I was gonna say, what about the gummy ships?
That's a that's a tough one. I feel like I'm going to end up conceding that one too. What do you think? Give me your thoughts.
Presentation wise, again, this goes back to flashiness. I give it to KH2.
Mm-hmm.
Creativity wise, I'd have to give it to KH1. I feel like there's more creativity involved in KH1's gummy ships compared to KH2's.
You know, I prefer. This is funny. I prefer KH1's gummy ships because, one, I don't think there was a big leap in gameplay between the two. Like you said, 2 had more flashiness, but I think 1 was just a more rewarding play. I can't exactly tell you why. All I know is for some reason when I play Kingdom Hearts 1, the gummy ships don't feel as in the way. For some reason in 2, the gummy ship just feels in the way. I can't explain it. I don't have a logical explanation for it. But
I actually, it's funny you said that, in the way. I know what you're saying because I had that feeling when I play KH2. Like when I play KH2 and I see a world that I want to go to and I realize I can't do it unless I complete this gummy ship mini game. I feel like that's where you're kind of saying like they're kind of like blocking you from going to the worlds unless you like do this mini game.
yeah, it's
And I think that's the feeling you're talking about. I know that feeling because whenever I replay 2, I get that feeling where I'm like, oh, here we go. Got to do this mini game just so I can get to these 2 worlds. But then again, KH1 has the same exact thing, but I don't know. I guess it's just executed a little more better.
And I think it was just so fresh.
Maybe
I think it was just so fresh, right? Like
Yeah.
to me, like I'm a big Star Fox guy. So to me it was like I've got this action combat game with a Star Fox mini game. Let's go. And then when 2 was really like more the same, I was like, it felt a little dreading. Whereas 3 gave you like this whole open like space to explore, like take pictures of constellations and stuff. Like, so I felt like had 2 tried to do what 3 did to an extent, I think it had what it needed to be better. But I just find 1's more rewarding. I do. I feel like they just feel more not in the way. That's all I would say. Gummy ships. What did you think of 3's gummy ships? Just to take us off topic for a minute. Because they took a lot of liberties with it.
I like the exploration. I like how they gave us more of like freedom to just explore this open world space. I like that. But I didn't feel I wanted more in a sense. Like I wanted the urge to want to explore more. Like
I would agree.
you're giving me this big empty open space, the freedom to go fly where I want, how to get to worlds. Just give me a reason to want to explore it more. I mean, the only reason why I explored more was to get the materials to upgrade my Keyblades
Yeah.
out of those asteroids. Other than
It felt
that,
like you made me do it.
yeah,
You're
it
making
felt
me
like it
do this,
forced.
Square.
And then let's not forget the secret bosses you had to do to get the Ultima weapon. Like
That I kind of enjoyed. That like I gotta say. That I
yeah, they
kind
were
of
cool.
enjoyed.
They were cool. I didn't mind them, but I was like, you're forcing me to do this.
Yeah,
But
you're making me do this, Square.
I'm enjoying the direction though. I like the idea. Give me that sense of open space. Let me explore more of this empty space void so I can go to other worlds. Just give me something more though, like to want to do there though.
Whatever they did with the open sea in Pirates of the Caribbean, they need to do with the gummy ship. Because Pirates of the Caribbean, for me, made me want to go explore island to island, see what I can find. I don't know how, because I found I enjoyed driving the gummy ship more than the boats. But for some reason, the Pirates world was able to ignite that in me, make me want to just go to all these islands on my map. So I'm definitely with you.
Exactly.
I think the idea is there. They just got to they just have to engage us a little more, make us really want to dive into it. But overall, I think the 1 and 2 Gummy Ship stuff is mostly similar. But I'm going to give the points to 1 just because 1 just felt more fresh than 2 did.
All right. Let me think. How about character interactions like in Cage 1 and Cage 2?
Ooh, okay.
And when I say character interactions, I mean like obviously the Disney character interactions with the characters, how they feel in the overall story, but also as party members.
I have an interesting take on this because this is a great question. If the series ended at Kingdom Hearts 2, I'd give it to Kingdom Hearts 1. So like at the time Kingdom Hearts 2 was released, I'm giving it to Kingdom Hearts 1. However, because of the way Kingdom Hearts works, I have to like burp / sneeze. I don't know what's going to happen, so just give me a second.
You're fine. Take your time.
I'm good. I didn't know where that was going. Anyway, Kingdom Hearts 2, I think because Nomura's vision for the future of the story was so clear, looking back, there were so many things in Kingdom Hearts 2 that still mean so much today. A lot of those interactions. For example, anything with Zigbar, right? Anything with him. Like
Yes.
there's so much more foreshadowing and meaning in the interactions in 2 because of what came out after. But if I put both these games on an island and just judge them within that circle, I find the Kingdom Hearts 1 interactions to be better. I think the original character interactions in 2 are better, but I think the Disney character interactions, the Final Fantasy character interactions, those are better in 1. But I think what 2 has going for it is just a better, stronger cast because you have the whole organization and you have Axel and you know the cast is so full and fleshed out in 2 that I find myself preferring the character interactions among the original characters there. But Kingdom Hearts 1, and I'm glad you brought this up, like party members, the interactions with Donald and Goofy in Kingdom Hearts 1 are peak. And at the end of the day, at least as far as the Dark Seeker saga goes, the soul of the Kingdom Hearts narrative runs through Sora, Donald, Goofy. I think that's something Kingdom Hearts 1 absolutely understood. I think it's something Kingdom Hearts 2 kind of lost a bit of a grip on. Kingdom Hearts 3 understood that, I think. I think Kingdom Hearts 3 put a lot of attention on Sora, Donald, Goofy. But when it comes to Disney World's Final Fantasy characters and your party of Sora, Donald, Goofy, the interactions in 1 are absolutely superior. But I think with the overall original cast, 2 would be better. But a lot of that has to do with the games that came after and the fact that they had just more of an original cast, right? With 1, you were pretty limited to Sora, Riku, Kairi, Ansem. Whereas in 2, yeah, the whole organization, Xemnas was more involved as a villain. They gave you Roxas. Like, there was just so much more for the original cast in 2. But 1, when it came to the party, Disney characters, Final Fantasy, I think is superior. So overall, I'm going to choose 2. But that's not without giving 1 its due.
Okay. And I agree with that. I 100% agree with that. It goes to 2 mostly because of what came after and help expand upon these characters and their meanings and interaction and their moments. But also I was like more on the party members besides Donald and Goofy, like the other Disney characters. Like, what is your take on like how 1 did party members when you went to different worlds compared to 2? Like, did you feel like the party members in Cage 1 felt more interactive than Cage 2's party members? Like when you team up with Jack in your party compared to how he is in Cage 1?
I think KH2 again is going to have higher highs but lower lows when it comes to that. Because one character that comes to mind is Mulan. I absolutely love the interactions with Mulan and what's the little dragon's name? Why can't I remember it? Mushu. I love that. And the way that when they saw Mushu in 2, they were like, Mushu, our summon. And he's like, yeah, I helped these guys out. Like, things like that in 2, where it was like, he was just a summon in KH1, but when they went to Mulan's world, they all knew each other. So, like, there are really high highs in Kingdom Hearts 2 like that, but then there are also some pretty low lows. I'm on the fence with this one, honestly. Overall, I'm on the fence with this one when it comes to the party members. What do you think?
Honestly, I think they both do a great job party member wise. The only reason I'd give like KH1's party members like an inch higher than KH2's. Well, actually, I don't even know if I'd give it an inch higher. I'd probably just say they're equally just as good because KH2, you had the limit commands. So you can do
Mm.
cool like limit moves with your party members. Um, but KH1, what I really appreciated, again, this is going back to what we were saying about the little things that matter. I like how you kind of needed these party members for certain things in the world. Like you need Beast to break down a wall. You
Yeah,
need
yeah.
you you need Aladdin to send Abu to like go touch one of the stones in the Cave of Wonders. Like I like that. I like those kind of interactions.
Yeah, I'm with you there. In fact, I actually kind of forgot about that. Now that you brought it up, I kind of forgot about that. Think we may need to replay KH1 sometime soon. But
Listen, I tell people all the time, go back and just replay KH1 and just try all the different ways of doing it. Like try to change it up a bit and then see if you like it or maybe it changes your outlook. Like if you always go for the sword, go for the staff this time. See the changes in the stats. Or when you talk to Tita, Selfie, and Waka, choose a different choice.
mhm.
See how you like it if you're leveling up slow and then very fast at the end, or if you're leveling up fast at the beginning and slow at the end.
Yeah,
Mix it up a bit. Just try and give it and just see how, and you'll learn to appreciate it more, all these little things.
yeah. I couldn't agree more. It's for me, it's a tougher game to go back to. But
Hmm.
you've brought up a lot of things today I didn't quite know about Kingdom Hearts 1 that makes it a bit more appealing to go back to, I think. Um, but yeah, overall, character interactions, I have to split my decision here in the sense that, like I said before, original characters, I give it to 2. Party members, Disney Final Fantasy, I give it to 1.
Hmm.
Now, you have any other points for that? Because I think that pretty
Trying
much would
to,
sum up everything I want to say.
I'm trying to think if there's any other topics we could tackle with these two. We did combat, we did story, we did
Soundtrack.
features,
Hmm.
soundtrack, we've done side content, character interaction, party members, gummy ship we've tackled. Trying
Yeah,
to
I'm
think.
trying to think. We're really covering all ends of the spectrum here. Um, huh. Yeah,
Trying to think what
I'm trying to
something that
really
they
think.
both
Is there
have that's
anything
unique.
else? Yeah.
Something that they both have that's unique to each other that we can compare.
Hmm.
I-
Yeah, maybe there's another like gummy ship
We
thing out there that we can
No, the
compare.
gummy ships are pretty much the same.
Yeah.
We said secret bosses. Did we talk strictly on the secret
We
bosses
did not
themselves?
strictly talk secret bosses,
Okay.
but I
How
know
about we
where
go
I'm
into
gonna
the
fall
secret
on that
bosses?
strictly from combat alone. Like I feel like it's got to be 2. But what do you think?
How about I was gonna say we can talk about like creativity with these secret bosses, like like how you have to handle these secret bosses
Okay. So
in a sense.
the game design of the bosses.
Yes,
Okay.
the game design of the secret bosses.
Huh. Well, I like the Sephiroth fight better in 2.
I agree. Sephiroth fight in KH2 is a lot better.
Yeah.
Um, but KH1, I have to give it props to because it makes it feel like a secret boss fight. In the sense like this is like a boss that I've never encountered before, and he's tough. And a lot of things that make him intimidating, I will say, is at the very start, his health bar doesn't go down when you first hit him. So it makes you feel like, oh my god, what am I doing wrong?
You're
I'm hitting
fighting
him and nothing
Sephiroth.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That is cool.
I'm hitting him and nothing is going down. Like his health bar is not depleting. What am I doing wrong? And then you remember he has an invisible health bar. He has a whole invisible health bar just to intimidate the player.
See, I like stuff like that. I do. do give props because what that does is it makes Sephiroth feel, and I guess that's what you're saying, where it's like he feels more like a secret boss to the point that his goddamn HP bar is a secret. I could vibe with that.
Exactly.
I could vibe with
Yeah,
that.
and it makes you and it kind of forces you to try different things because like as a player, I hit a boss and if I don't see anything happening to him, I'm like, okay, let me switch it up. Let me try using magic. Let me try doing this or
Hmm.
try doing that. It's like making you try everything until you realize, what you can do to actually win against him.
Yeah, it forces you to think creatively about your approach to the boss. It
Exactly.
forces you, yeah.
Exactly.
And in that sense, I can give points to one on its design, whereas two is like a firepower fight. You know what I mean? At least with Sephiroth. So I'm gonna give it to two. I'm just gonna be transparent. I think anything combat related, I'm just gonna give to two,
Okay.
but it doesn't downplay what one
All right.
achieved. Because again, what to me when it
No.
comes to combat, secret bosses, mechanics, everything, one walked so two could run, and where one did beat two on combat, to me is the magic system.
Okay. I was gonna say back to the bosses, the secret
Hmm.
bosses, like just with creativity wise, I think KH1 takes the cake when it comes to like being creative with the bosses. Like again, how I use Sephiroth, I was gonna say, what about the Phantom? That's a creative mechanic for a boss where you
Hmm.
have to use. It's almost like Simon Says, but you have to use magic in order to beat him, basically.
Yeah.
And if you're a player who just strictly loves to just go whacking your sword around and defeating enemies, now you're forced to try something different. And then it makes you realize how useful magic abilities can actually be.
And I would like to see more of that because I do feel like more often than not, the magic system doesn't get the love it deserves, especially in Kingdom Hearts 1. Just because it is a
Hmm.
game where if you wanted to just whack your way through it, you won't have the easiest time, but there are some players that can get away with it. Um,
Of course.
but yeah, I got a good question here from guys that can keep us going. But first, we have another super chat from Josh Z coming in, said Sora is better in Kingdom Hearts 1. I don't like that his emotions are so out of character because of another character. It just feels like he's just being angry because Roxas is there. Maybe that is a hot take. I don't think it's a hot take. I just think people
Um,
like myself will respectfully disagree. I enjoyed the fact that the Roxas inside of him was influencing his emotions because it goes both ways. It wasn't just the anger, it was him crying as he's leaving Twilight Town. It was little things like that that kept, and it never stopped. So I could agree to disagree with you on that, Josh, but I definitely understand the appeal of preferring the KH1 Sora to the KH2. I guess I'll ask you that, Keycast. Which Sora do you prefer, the KH1 Sora or the KH2?
um, that's tough. I kind of like one more, just because he was that naive kid who was like getting his dream come true, as like a little kid. Like, we all have a dream that we want to happen, and then Sora's was to explore different worlds, and now he's getting to
Mm-hmm.
explore these worlds, and he's fascinated with these worlds and what you can do. And like, for example, like when he went to Neverland, that's like probably one of the most emotional parts coming to that topic. When he said, "I can't believe I flew. Wait till I tell Kyrie I was flying around."
Mm-hmm.
Like that's something I never heard of before. I like his like
Sense of
character in
wonder.
one more than two.
No,
Yeah.
that makes me think about it. I'm on the. It's like I think I like two a little bit better, but I think that's just bias in my opinion because I do think one did a better job of like achieving that sense of wonder, like a boy who truly is on this grand adventure. They did a good job of doing that. Whereas with two, it almost feels like he takes that a little bit for granted. And I think three plays on that a
Mhm.
little bit. Like so I think that's why three was almost like had to rein him in, bring him home, start him over. Um,
I agree.
I'm on the fence. I think I just his temperament in two is appealing to me, but the way his sense of wonder builds up KH1's presentation can't be understated.
Mhm. I will say though, I don't think the whole Sora's personality in 2 100% comes from Roxas.
It
Roxas
doesn't.
does play a big role.
Yeah.
Roxas plays a part role because you got to remember when we play KH2, we're told that Roxas at the time, he's half of what Sora is. So Sora's emotions and are from Roxas too. He's basically Sora from what we're told. So, but I won't say just because Roxas bonded back with Sora, that's what made Sora's personality like more I don't know how
Angsty.
to say it. Like he's more angsty. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's all because of Roxas because anyone like when you find out the organization kidnapped Kyrie and he lost his friends again, that's all his emotions.
Yeah, it doesn't just it. It's oh yeah, I see what you're saying. Where it's like just because Roxas was in him, that whole thing going on, it didn't influence every part of his direction. Like maybe it made him 20% more angry, but he's still 80%
Hmm.
angry at the situation without Roxas. Like that's how I'm kind of interpreting that.
Yeah,
Yeah, because again, and
like Roxas isn't the whole thing for Sora.
not at
It's a
all.
part, but it's a part, but it's not a huge drastic change. It's not like he changed Sora's character completely.
Exactly. There was an influence, but it's not like he was behind the steering wheel.
Hmm.
Oh yeah. Okay, we hit the hour and a half mark. We hit the hour and a half mark. Cage Guides put in a good recommended potential topic we could discuss. Yeah, here we go. Which game is more intuitive for first-time players? I think Cage 2 did better than Cage 1, but not great. More intuitive for first-time players is going to be Cage 2 because Cage 2 is just an easier game.
I agree. I
That's
100% agree.
and I don't think that makes one game better or worse, by the way. But I do think theoretically, 2 is an easier game for a first-time player to play, just because it's a combat hallway. Whereas 1, there's a lot more nuance into what you need to do in these worlds.
I would I would also say Cage 1 was way ahead of its time because of that. Like what they were trying to do with Cage 1, I feel like it was a huge leap and ahead of other games, like
Mm-hmm.
world exploration and all that. But I 100% agree. Cage 2 would be a much more easier time to get through than Cage 1. And I will say that from experience because I played Cage 1. I never finished it as a young kid. Cage 2 came out. I was able to beat that on my first playthrough because it was so easy and like I don't want to say easy like the game overall is easy. I just meant more like first time friendly,
Mm-hmm.
like to help you get through the game. Cage 1, I was stuck on Destiny Islands for the longest while not knowing what the heck I was supposed to do.
Got to build the raft, bro.
I, I didn't know where any of the items were. I didn't know what I was doing. But here's the crazy part. Even though I had no idea what I was doing, I was still having so much fun just on Destiny Islands alone. So imagine my reaction when I finally got past Destiny Islands into Traverse Town and like how much I adored the game even more.
I can only imagine because it must have felt like the whole world opened up to you. A real Kingdom Hearts
Yeah,
experience there.
yeah. It was just a huge change. And again, it's probably one of the reasons why I like H1 more. It was just a great experience now that I appreciate it more and I always go back to it. And I love the other Cage games, but there's just something about Cage 1 that draws me back. Like if I sit down and I look at all the games and I say to myself, which one I'd want to play, I can go back to one a million times without complaint.
There's no video game quite like Kingdom Hearts 1, and I don't think there will ever be a game like Kingdom Hearts 1 ever again. And I think that's why there are a lot of
Mhm.
people who, to this day, like yourself, can just continually keep going back to it because not even Kingdom Hearts is going to achieve what Kingdom Hearts 1 did. You know, even someone like me who
Mhm.
prefers KH2, I know Square can make a KH2 game tomorrow. In fact, they have. It's called Final Fantasy
Mhm.
VII Remake. Um, Combat Hallway Part 2 there. And I love both those games. I'm not throwing shade. But one was so special and it had this feeling of like one has this feeling of like this shouldn't exist. This game shouldn't exist. By the time 2 and everything else comes out, it's earned its place in the cultural zeitgeist. It's Sora's an icon, Sora for Smash, whatever. But like Kingdom Hearts 1 is just like it's this game that had no business existing. It's like I swear, like the game came out in 2002. Even like 1995, I walked into Square Enix's office to pitch a game. I want to take your IPs and clash them with Western IPs. But here's the thing:
Mhm.
we're going to make a whole new IP for people to enjoy that game with. They think I'm insane. They think I'm a crazy person. They'd be like, why wouldn't you just like use one of the IPs to be the main character? It's why they wanted Mickey to be like the main character you played as. Like, oh, yeah, character recognition. Everybody knows him. Yeah, we'll do that. And they're just like, no. Original characters no one's ever seen before. Like, geez, man. You're going to make a new IP based on the collision of two IP powerhouses, right? This wasn't just like original characters clash with FF7 plus Aladdin. No, it was like the entire Disney canon with like the entire Square canon on the table, clashing with these new original characters that have been designed to look like a crossover between Square Enix and a Disney movie. Like, it's when you get into the weeds of like what this game conceptually is, it's like the fact Kingdom Hearts 1 ever existed is a miracle, and the fact that it continues to go on is a blessing.
I agree. It's the only words I can say is magical. That's it.
Magical.
Magic in the making. That's it.
Magic in the
And
making.
that's why I'm hoping Cage 4, like Cage 4, I feel since it's going to be like the start of the next saga, I hope Cage 4 feels like the Cage 1 for this next saga. That's what I'm praying for. I want that same feeling I get with Cage 1 with Cage 4.
That's what I'm hoping for. I don't know if they'll ever capture that KH1 feeling, but I would like
Probably
it
not.
but I would like it to feel like that was part of the formula. Okay, I have a question, a recommendation from Larkscene Simp, where he wants us to talk Keyblade design.
Ooh, Keyblade
Which
design.
game had the better Keyblade designs?
Oh Lord. There's a lot of I have to like look up a picture of all the Keyblades. Give me a minute.
I have to be honest. I can't pull enough off the top of my head to give a confident answer. But I'm very partial to I forget the name of it, the Keyblade you get from Auron in Kingdom Hearts 2 and the Pride Rock Keyblade. I'm just going KH2 just because, like, honestly, probably for Auron's Keyblade alone. I got to be honest. But
okay.
they're all
mean,
fantastic.
design-wise, I'm looking at them right now just to get it in my head and like thinking again. KH2 has some really good designs, and KH1 has some really nice designs. I would personally, I mean, even though a lot of them are pretty like simple, but I kind of want to give it to KH1.
Let me check. Do you have
It's funny.
the image you're looking at? Do you think you can actually send it to me?
Yes. Hold on one second. Let me see if I can find it. I'm like,
because I'm really just operating based on memory right now.
all right. So give me a second.
Yeah, take your time. Don't worry about it. Excuse me.
I'm just looking at them. Just the shapes and like what they're made out of and stuff like that just look really unique. This is the KH1 coming your way right now. And then I'll send you KH2s.
Oh, okay. Looking at them now. Let me open them in a new tab so I can pull them up on the screen. Let people get a look at what we're looking at. Yeah, the Keyblade, those are pretty sick. You sent me KH1, that's what I'm looking at? Yeah.
Yeah, those are KH1 Keyblades. This is KH2.
Those are pretty sick.
They are most of them are pretty simple though. Like when I look at Lady Luck and Crab Claw, they are kind of simple design, but they're not bad. But like when you look at the Diamond Dust, the Sephiroth Keyblade, was it the One Wing Angel, the Metal Chocobo, the Lionheart, the Divine Rose, which I think is probably one of the coolest designs.
The Divine Rose. 1 second. I'm looking at them now. I'm trying to get them up on the screen so people could see. So.
Oh yeah.
Just bear with me. Whoops. Hello, people. There we go. And let's take this, pull it down. There we go. Okay. Here are our Keyblades. Let's focus them up a little bit. Okay. So these are the KH1 blades. These are the KH2. I guess I should zoom in on this one a little more.
Yeah, the KH2.
Yeah, 2s definitely are more intricate than 1s. But one almost, I'll say the one Keyblades almost have like, it almost feels like they all have something in common. It's weird. Like, okay, here's a good way to put it. The Kingdom Hearts 1 Keyblades all look like they came from the same manufacturer. Whereas the Cage
Okay,
2
I can see it.
Keyblades
Yeah.
are like, now the free market's open and there's competitors. It's like, this is a tough one. I'm looking at them both because like, there's something so charming about the Cage 1 designs. Like the Cage 2 ones are definitely edgier and cooler. If you're going to ask me which one's the cooler design, probably going to go Cage 2. But the Cage 1 designs are so charming.
It's I'm going to use the phrase, they're simple and clean.
Yeah, there it is.
They're simple and clean. Like, it's just something about them that's just like appealing to the eye.
You know, it's hard because Guardian Soul and Circle of Life, those are the two. I love these two Keyblades. Anytime I play KH2, these are like my go-tos. And the Gull Wing. Oh, God. There's a 10-2 reference I forgot. Oh, God, that's it. I have to pick two. But I can't ignore that there's something so charming about one's designs.
Out of all the Keyblades in KH2, funny enough, the only one that I always go to is Star Seeker, which is surprisingly the only second Keyblade you get. I just love its design.
It is cool.
Like I always love Star Seeker's design.
There's so many good ones. You really can't go wrong. Oh, God, and then you get Fenrir in KH2. I'm sorry, the more I look at it. I guess I'm just being an angsty teenager about it. But
I mean, compare Fenrir to the Metal Chocobo because they're both given to you, like they're both cloud-related Keyblades.
True. I'm looking at it now.
Look at the Metal Chocobo. Looks more traditional. It looks like it's from the original FF7 like design of the Buster Sword.
I will
and
give you points
KH2
for
is
that
doing
one.
more.
The Advent
KH2
children.
is doing more of like Advent Children. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the more I go back and forth on them, you're right. That's crazy. That's crazy stuff. That's a good topic
It is
suggestion.
crazy when you look it up.
That was a good topic suggestion. Thank you, Larkscene Simp. Best name on Twitch. All right.
Best name on.
Yeah. Land says Oblivion and Oathkeeper carry KH1 for me. Their designs are pretty sick. Yeah, it looks like KH1. Games, though. It looks like KH1 was the popular choice for Keyblades. As for what game achieved what it set out to do better, we've got 52% said KH2, 48% said KH1, and that's what I love.
That's close.
That's
close.
What I love. That's what I love.
I love that. Yeah.
There's no right answer. There's no actual right answer.
And there's not a huge gap between them, which I love. Like that's a really close debate.
Yeah. And I've been watching it. It's gone back and forth between who's in the lead. So it's like, it's crazy stuff, dude. Crazy stuff. I'm
trying to think. Which game would you say? I was gonna say, let's talk about which game had a lot of wow moments. Do you think KH1 or KH2?
Well, they both certainly did. As in, who had more wow moments or the better wow moments?
Or the better wow moments, like wow, that's pretty neat, or like wow, like what, like surprising moments.
You know, there's not a whole lot in KH2 that's that surprising. Just because like a lot of the game is the characters catching up to what the player knows, right? Because of Chain of Memories, the player has so much more insight than the characters do. So in KH2, a lot of those wow moments are really just the characters learning what you already know. Whereas in KH1, by the way, the poll's at 50-50 now, by the way. Whereas KH1, the wow moments, you're as ignorant to this stuff as the characters are. So I'm actually going to go with KH1 by virtue of the narrative, in the sense that you, the player, are as clueless as Sora and the rest. Whereas in KH2,
Hmm.
the narrative is dependent on the fact you know things the characters don't, right? You know
Okay.
Roxas is in Sora's heart. You know those things. They don't. So I think one has the better wow moments because of that.
Okay. All right. I was gonna say like wow moments like would be in KH2. They do have some like when Riku's reveal that he was Ansem, the whole change, because we didn't know
Yeah.
about that after Chain of Memories. Someone brought up who was it? Zebulun 2003 said, um, the whole starting off as Roxas is a huge wow moment. I'm
Sure.
not gonna lie, when I first
Maybe
played
I'm thinking of
KH2
wow
and I
moment differently then. Maybe I'm thinking of wow moment differently. I'm almost thinking like the Zigbar reveal. Like that's what I had in mind. If we're going for like confusion or like because
it's tough. Like
it brings up a good
I want
point.
to say like
Yeah,
surprises, like surprises, like almost like surprise, like KH1, learning that Ansem was the hooded guy you met at the beginning of the game, or
yeah, the whole
the whole
dis.
Keyblade,
Yeah,
yeah, Diz,
mm,
the Keyblade belonging to Riku.
I'm shifting
Uh,
over to two now. I'm shifting over to two.
yeah, Kyrie being in Sora's heart, even though it was kind of implied, but as a player, we just think she faded through us.
Yeah, no, one has its share of it. That's the thing. One has plenty of
Yeah,
them, but bringing up Roxas and Diz, maybe rethink it a little bit because everything with
hmm
Ansem the Wise was awesome in KH2. I don't understand
I
how some
agree.
people don't like that character. I really don't. Okay. KH Guy says my casual KH1 wow moment was seeing the stained glass top of the lift stop in Hollow Bastion and the light particles floating about. So pretty. Yeah, I see those are the kind of wow moments I think KH1 has. These things you stumble upon that you wouldn't have expected. Like now we have the freaking arc is in KH1. You know, there's a big wow moment now looking back like, "Oh, geez. That was there the whole time, huh?" Um
Yeah.
but I think overall, too, even though what I said before, I still hold to that we, the player, just had such narrative insight that the plot didn't really surprise us. So there weren't any like wow surprises. But in terms of like wow amazements, then I'm gonna give it to two. But for surprises, I'm
Okay.
gonna give it to one. That's what I'll say. For like peak
That's fair.
moments, I'll go two. For surprises and twists, I'm gonna go one.
Okay. That works.
But yeah, okay, that puts us at an hour and 47 minutes. Um,
Why not have the chat give us some topics that we haven't touched upon?
I
See
was
what
gonna
they can
say, I mean, we
let's
have
say.
been relying on them for the last like 3 or 4 topics, but if you guys have any more, we would love to keep the train rolling. Let's see. Adonai says the dive to heart moment was a wow moment for me as a kid. Viscerally beautiful, artistic language. It's very
I
cryptic.
agree.
It is
Very
very
beautiful.
cryptic.
Cryptic too. Can we say that too? Like KH1 probably, in my opinion, has a darker tone than KH2.
100%. 100% agree. I think you could argue, oh, better cover art, says Guides.
Are we talking final mix cover
Now
art or
let's
the
do
original?
base.
Because if it's the original
Let's do base
base,
game. Base game.
KH1. KH1.
KH1 in my opinion is the best box art of all time.
Still number one box art.
Yeah. You're not going to have me argue that. Honestly, even if you brought the final mixes in, I'm still going to say KH1's box art is the best. It's just beautiful. That sort of like midnight color scheme and like the fact that it like glows. If they made something that's dark but glows. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the thing. You could look it up on Google Images, but it doesn't do it justice. The case itself
No,
glows.
you actually have to hold it in your hand.
Yeah. It's, oh God. I
I
could
was also
fawn
gonna
over
say
it.
you could also I was gonna say you could also give it I would also give it to KH1 Final Mix's cover art better than KH2 only because of this nice little detail of Riku sitting on like a gargoyle statue or some kind of statue with a dark wing to show you that he's going down his dark path, like a little foreshadowing there.
Well, that's what I like too, right? Is that the box arts, just to give them all credit, there's always foreshadowing in them. There's always
Exactly.
foreshadowing in the box art. That's why it's like, now that the secret's kind of out, I wonder if they'll keep that trend up with Kingdom Hearts 4, right? Because they always show us where we're going with the box art. That's why the final world is the final mix box art, and Quadratum is the Kingdom Hearts 3 box art. So it's like they always show
Yeah,
us where we're going. I wonder if they'll keep that up because now the secret's out. We know that's what they do.
that is. I remember making a post about that a long time ago that blew up. That the cases kind of teased the one of the worlds in the next installment. I mean, a lot of people just said debunked it and said it was more so those cases inspired the worlds to come in the next game, which is fine. But
I
now,
don't think
like you
so.
said, do you think they had do you think they had what is it called? Like it's kind of hard to say because if you look at KH1, the city that they're at, it looks like the dark city that's in KH2
The world that
in
never was.
but in a wallpaper that came out not too long ago or an artwork, it was shown that that's actually Traverse Town that they're standing in
Oh,
on the
really?
KH1 box art. Yeah, so that's why people said it's more so they kind of looked at the cases and got an idea what kind of world they want to establish in the next title. Whether along the way they decided to tease it as the titles went on, but I wouldn't say like every case, teases. But it's a weird coincidence because when you look at the KH2 final mix box art, that's clearly the final world when you play KH3.
It exactly like it to a T. And you got to remember that that's also the final mix case, right? It's not like they had the final world planned in 2004 when they dropped KH2. But
Exactly.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
the final mix case. It's a different story. And, say what you will, with KH3, it's deliberate, right? Like, it couldn't be more deliberate.
Yes.
Oh, boy. Okay, let's see. Guides recommended maybe like better magic spells for combat, but I feel like you and I kind of settled on KH1 for that one when we were talking it.
Hmm.
Adonai says, like literally looking at the OG KH2 box sleeve in real life right now, and it's actually glowing. That's what I mean. It's a beautiful piece of art. Beautiful piece of art. I don't see. Okay, here's something. We're getting very niche now. This is how I think I know we're running out of
Okay.
big topics. But the better grind for Ultima. Confession, 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 confession.
All right.
Fake fan
Oh
alert.
God.
Fake fan alert. I've only
Oof.
gotten Ultima in KH3. I never did it in 1 and 2. Fake fan.
Really?
Unsubscribe.
Really?
The lodge is canceled. It's over. I've come clean. I've come clean. I've only done Ultima Blade in KH3. The lodge party's over. Okay? So I concede to you.
Wow.
What do you think is the better grind for Ultima, 1 or 2?
I'm gonna have to say two because I'm gonna say I'm a fake KH1 fan. I've never
Hmm.
gotten in KH1 because it's funny. I've gotten in KH2 because I feel like it's easier. KH1, you have to synthesize everything in the shop just to get to it.
Yeah.
For some reason, KH2, you just need to get the materials and you just need to level up the shop to a certain level and then it's available also when you get the recipe. But KH1 I feel like is too tedious, way too tedious.
Yeah, see, KH1's got a little, but that's because it's got that Squaresoft energy. Where like
Mhm.
if you want the big thing in a Squaresoft game, they're going to torture you. That was their angle. And I respect it. I respect it. Um yeah, it seems like everyone's kind of on your page here. That the one grind for Ultima is just a bit much.
It's way too much in KH1. I mean, they definitely made it a little more easier in 2 because I remember I was doing like a regular run of KH2 and once I got to the world that never was, I went and checked to see if I caught any of the materials I needed and I actually had a good chunk of them. I was like, "Oh wow." And it wasn't even like deliberate. I wasn't intentionally looking for the materials.
You just happened to stumble upon it. That's
Exactly.
pretty
Because
cool.
every enemy I defeated, they dropped the items. It was a little more easier.
Gotcha. We have a good one. We have a good one. A little less niche. From Gary Gabriel Jr. says, which game has the better secret ending in your opinion? I know what I'm saying.
Mm.
It's not an easy answer, but man,
Uh,
seeing Xehanort
um,
in action and being like, "That's the guy," and what did he do
okay.
to Roxas like that?
I'm gonna say this though. I'm not sure if I don't know if I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong, or maybe I wasn't paying attention. When we see the secret ending to KH2 for the first time, it's never stated that that old man is Xehanort.
It's never
Do we,
stated.
as fan, are we fans just assume that that was Xehanort? Because all we were told in KH2 that Xehanort was a young man. Um,
I don't think
uh,
so.
who, yeah, Xehanort was just introduced as a young man who was Ansem the Wise's apprentice. So when you see the secret ending to KH2 and you see an old man dressed as Ansem, and then you see a mysterious character that's dressed like Riku, how he was in KH1, we were never told who these people were. We
We
just assumed.
we were never told, but even back in the day, if you and this is like old internet showing my age here, you crawl around a game FAQ forum, somebody put it together and said the kind of thing you said, like, look, that's like Ansem's outfit, and like kind of,
Yeah.
I'll say upon first viewing, you don't know who that is. The only one you know is Roxas, and you're just like, that's not. You eventually learn that's not Roxas. But I don't know. Both are awesome. I will say the Kingdom Hearts 1 secret ending, man, if that was the atmosphere Kingdom Hearts became, holy hell. Like, I love the Kingdom Hearts 1
Yeah.
secret movie. It just never ended up being indicative of, like, the series' atmosphere in a way. You
Hmm.
kind of know what I'm saying? Like, I really do enjoy the 1, but 2 secret ending was just like, you got these characters in Keyblade armor, and you got this fucking old wizard master, like, looking, it was just off the rails. Like, you didn't know what you were looking at. Kingdom Hearts 1, you're like, oh,
I
they're
agree.
the Heartless. There's Riku, who looks like such a badass, and you can't tell me Yoko Taro didn't borrow from that look. But and they're both awesome. They both get an A+. There was just something about the 2
Oh yeah.
secret movie where I was just like, where are we going with this? Keyblade armors? Like, oh man.
The graveyard itself, when you
Good.
see a bunch of Keyblades
Yeah,
scattered,
dude. Yeah, dude.
and then I'll never forget as a kid. Oh God, I still remember when I first saw that. I was like, you know how like when during the battle you see their faces? I thought Terra was an older version of Sora, and I swear to God, I thought Aqua was like Kyrie just with blue hair dye. I was like, what is going on?
Kyrie's going through a phase. She got older.
Yes.
It's a phase. Blue hair. She'll get through it.
Oh, those were good times. And then everyone always thought that was KH3. Good times, the box arts.
Kingdom Hearts 2 is the real Kingdom Hearts 3.
Exactly.
All right, we are at the 2-hour mark. Um, I think we've covered everything we can here, but I do want to maybe give time for closing statements. We had our opening statements, you know. I think it might be good to kind of close this out, give our final thoughts, and yeah,
All right.
it's been a wild episode, but we're not done yet. Maybe give your closing thoughts, and we'll close this one out.
My closing thoughts. Both games phenomenal. Both have their ups, their highs and lows. Both achieve what they wanted to achieve as an individual game. My quick little rant to the fans out there that are listening and who will listen: give KH1 another shot. Try to do all the different things that you can in KH1. Give it like that not 100% the game, but like give it that like extra love that you always give KH2 if you love KH2 the most. Because KH1 I feel is a very underrated game in this series compared to all the rest.
I would echo your entire sentiment. I think it is a game that often gets overlooked. I also understand that sometimes it's hard to go back to a game, especially after 20 years have passed. But Kingdom Hearts 1 is one of those games that is always rewarding to go back to. And I say that as the person standing on the Kingdom Hearts 2 side of the aisle here, which I will say, just to repeat you, we were talking about which game achieved what it was going for better. And I think neither one of us would disagree on the fact that both games did exactly what they set out to do. I think Kingdom Hearts 1, in a sense, has more variety and more going for it. I will stand on the Kingdom Hearts 2 side of this because I think at the end of the day, it doubles down hard on what it does right, combat and narrative, and allows that to run the show. And just to repeat myself from earlier, I think the KH1 model is better for Kingdom Hearts moving forward. But I think in 2004, Kingdom Hearts 2 was the exact game they needed to make. And it's one that should be remembered for its combat henceforth. That said, the chat has spoken. Kingdom Hearts 1 with 53% of the vote. Kingdom Hearts 2 with 47% of the vote. Jesus, this is the 2-hour mark and I can't speak anymore, I swear. Anyway, this has been a lot of fun. Keycast, I just want to reiterate what I said in the beginning. One, thanks for always coming into the lodge. Every episode you've done has been gold.
No, thank you.
Absolute gold every episode you've done. Guys, if you are on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, follow this man right here. I've got his link in the description. He will keep you up to date with news quicker than I can. He will go over theories more often than I do. And he will overall go through lore analysis. He's a great account to follow. Spreads nothing but good vibes on that platform, which is something I value a lot. Dude, thank you so much for coming on, man. Any final words before we close this out?
Thank you guys for having me. It's always a pleasure, and I can't wait to do more.
Awesome. A W podcast, as a 13th nobody would say. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to wrap up here. But tonight, we are streaming the finale of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So if you're avoiding spoilers, don't say hi to your boy. If you're not avoiding spoilers or if you've beaten it, come show up and hang out. But anyway, Keycast, thank you for coming on. Sages, thank you for the support. Chat, thank you for the love. We're out of here, and we'll be back soon.